The first time I realized I wasn't going to Hawaii wasn't when my parents told me. It was the night before they did. I was sitting at the dining table, laptop open, comparing hotel reviews. The glow of the screen reflected in my glasses as I read out loud, trying to sound excited. "This one has a private beach," I said. "And the snorkeling tours are cheaper if we book early." Daniel didn't even look up from his phone. "I'm doing jet skiing," he muttered. "Of course you are," I replied with a small smile, pretending it didn't bother me how easily he claimed things. My mother glanced at my father. It was quick, so quick most people wouldn't notice. But I did, because I had spent my entire life noticing the things they didn't say. "Maybe don't book anything just yet," my father said casually, cutting into his food. Something in my chest tightened. "Why?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light. "No reason," he said. "Plans change. Plans change." The words lingered long after dinner ended. The next evening, my mother knocked on my door. She didn't wait for me to answer before stepping inside. "That was always a bad sign, sweetheart," she began, her voice unusually soft. "We need to talk." I turned slowly in my chair. "About the trip." She hesitated, just for a second, but it was enough. "Yes." My father appeared behind her, arms crossed, his expression already set in that firm, final way that meant the decision had been made long before this conversation. "We think it's better if you stay home," he said. The words hit harder than I expected. "Stay home," I repeated. My mother stepped forward quickly. "It's just that your grandmother needs someone to look after her. You know how fragile she's been lately." I blinked. Grandma had been the same for years. Quiet, slow-moving, but far from helpless. "She's fine," I said carefully. "She needs supervision." My father insisted. Daniel leaned against the doorway behind them, watching. Waiting. "So, I don't get to go?" I asked. There it was. The question no one wanted to answer directly. "It's just this once," my mother said, placing a hand on my shoulder. "You're the most responsible one. We can trust you." Responsible. The word settled over me like a weight. "You understand, right?" she added gently. I looked at her. Then at my father. Then at Daniel, who didn't even try to hide the small, satisfied smile tugging at his lips. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, like a door closing. "I understand," I said. The house felt different after that. Not empty. Not yet. But already missing something. The next morning, I watched as suitcases lined the hallway. Bright clothes spilled out, floral shirts, sunglasses, beach hats. Things I had helped pick. Things I would never use. "Don't forget sunscreen!" my mother called out. I packed 3. Daniel laughed. No one asked if I needed anything. No one looked at me for longer than a second. It was like I had already disappeared. At the door, my father turned to me. "Take care of your grandmother," he said. "And the house." I nodded. "I will." My mother hugged me quickly, too quickly, and followed him outside. Daniel paused just long enough to smirk. "Thanks for staying," he said. The door closed behind him. And just like that, they were gone. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the empty space they had left behind. Then I turned slowly toward the living room. Grandma sat by the window, her hands folded in her lap, watching me. Her expression wasn't grateful. It wasn't relieved. It was something else entirely. Something that made a chill run down my spine. Because she didn't look like someone who needed help. She looked like someone who knew a secret and wasn't sure how to tell it. The house had never felt this quiet before. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, the kind that wraps around you gently. No. This silence felt heavy, like it was watching me waiting. Grandma barely spoke the first 2 days. She stayed in her chair by the window. The same one she had sat in for years, knitting slowly, her needles clicking in a steady rhythm. But something about her was different now. Her hands trembled more than usual. Her eyes followed me, not in a warm, comforting way, but cautiously, almost guiltily. Like she was carrying something she didn't know how to put down. "You don't have to watch me like that," I said on the second evening, forcing a small laugh as I set a cup of tea beside her. "I'm not going anywhere." She didn't smile. Instead, her fingers tightened around the knitting needles. "I know," she said quietly. That was all. By the third night, the silence had started to get to me. I couldn't focus on anything. Not the book in my hands, not the TV playing softly in the background. My mind kept drifting back to that look my parents had shared, to Daniel's smirk, to the strange weight in Grandma's eyes. Something wasn't right. I felt it. Deep down, in that place where instincts live, the ones we're taught to ignore. Around midnight, I was in the kitchen pouring myself water when I heard it. My name, soft, fragile, almost like a breath. I froze. "Come here, child." It was Grandma. I set the glass down slowly and walked toward the living room, my heartbeat picking up with every step. She hadn't turned on the lights. The only illumination came from the faint glow of the street lamp outside, casting shadows across her face. "Grandma," I said gently, kneeling beside her. "Are you okay?" She reached for my hand. Her fingers were cold. Colder than they should have been. "They shouldn't have done this to you," she whispered. A chill ran down my spine. "Done what?" I asked. Her grip tightened slightly. "This, leaving you here." I frowned. "It's fine. Someone had to stay with you." Her eyes snapped to mine then, sharp, almost urgent. "No," she said. "That's not why." The room seemed to shrink around us. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper now. She leaned closer, as if the walls themselves might be listening. "They didn't leave you behind for me," she said. "They needed you out of the way." The words didn't make sense. Not at first. Out of the way. For what? I asked, my chest tightening. Her lips trembled. "They're meeting a lawyer," she said slowly. "In Hawaii." I felt my breath catch. "A lawyer?" I repeated. She nodded weakly. "They've been planning this for months," she continued. "All the papers, all the decisions. They didn't want you there to question it." My mind raced, trying to keep up. "Question what?" I asked, though a part of me already knew I wasn't going to like the answer. Grandma closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them again, they were filled with something I had never seen before. "Regret." "They're transferring everything?" she said. My heart pounded in my ears. "The house, the savings, everything your parents own." The room tilted slightly. "To Daniel." The word echoed in my head like a crack in glass. "No," I said instinctively. "That doesn't make sense." But even as I said it, it did. It explained too much. The sudden secrecy. The hushed conversations. The way I was so easily excluded. "They didn't want you to know," Grandma whispered. "They think you won't fight back." A tear slipped down my cheek before I could stop it. All this time, I thought I was being responsible, needed, trusted. But I wasn't. I was being removed, silenced, replaced. Grandma squeezed my hand gently. "I tried to stop them," she said. "But they wouldn't listen." I stared at the floor, my thoughts spinning. My chest aching in a way I couldn't put into words. Everything I believed about my family shifted in that moment. Cracked. And something deeper began to rise beneath the pain. Something quieter. Stronger. More dangerous. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't just hurt. I was aware. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, watching shadows stretch and shift with every passing hour. Grandma's words replayed in my mind, over and over again, like a quiet echo I couldn't escape. They needed you out of the way. At first, it felt unreal, like something dramatic you'd hear in a story, but not something that could actually happen to you. Except it had. And the worst part, it made sense. By morning, something inside me had changed. Not healed, not even settled, just shifted. I moved through the house quietly, almost mechanically. I made breakfast for Grandma, helped her to the table, poured her tea. The same routine, the same responsibilities. But I wasn't the same person doing them anymore. "Eat something?" she said gently, noticing I hadn't touched my plate. "I'm not hungry," I replied. She studied me for a moment, her eyes soft but knowing. "You're thinking too much," she said. I let out a small, humorless breath. Not thinking enough, actually. Because now that I was thinking, really thinking, memories started lining up in ways they never had before. Daniel always got what he wanted. That used to feel like normal sibling imbalance. Harmless. Temporary. But now? Now it looked different. I remembered the time I gave up my chance to attend a school trip because Daniel needed a new laptop. The way my parents had praised me for being mature, while he barely said thank you. I remembered birthdays where his gifts were extravagant and mine were practical, useful, forgettable. I remembered every time I was told, "You're the strong one. You don't need as much." And I believed them. That was the worst part. I believed them. "They've been choosing him for years," I said quietly later that afternoon, sitting beside Grandma. She didn't argue. "They think I'll just accept it." I continued. "Like I always do." Grandma reached over and placed her hand on mine. "And will you?" she asked. The question lingered in the air between us. For a moment, I didn't answer. Because part of me, the part that had spent years keeping peace, staying quiet, being responsible, wanted to say yes. It would be easier. No confrontation, no conflict. No tearing apart what little family we had left. But another part of me, a part I hadn't really listened to before, was louder now. Stronger. And it was tired. "No," I said finally. The word felt unfamiliar on my tongue. But also right. Grandma smiled faintly, like she had been waiting for that answer. "Good," she whispered. That evening, I sat at my desk with my laptop open. For the first time, I wasn't looking at travel plans or helping someone else organize their life. I was searching, reading, learning, legal rights, property laws, inheritance rules. At first, it was overwhelming, pages of terms I didn't fully understand, processes that felt too big, too complicated. But I didn't stop, because with every piece of information, something inside me grew steadier, clearer. This wasn't just betrayal. It was a decision, a calculated one, and if they could plan behind my back, then so could I. I didn't call them. I didn't text. When my mother sent pictures of beaches and sunsets, I replied with simple words. "Looks nice. Have fun." Nothing more. Let them think everything was normal. Let them believe I was still the same person they had left behind. By the time the week ended, I wasn't shaking anymore. The hurt was still there, deep, sharp, impossible to ignore. But it was no longer controlling me. It was fueling me. I had spoken to someone. Quietly, carefully, asked the right questions, got the answers I needed, and now I understood something they didn't. They thought I was out of the way, powerless, unaware. They were wrong. That night, I stood by the window where Grandma always sat. The street outside was still, silent under the dim glow of the lights. For the first time in days, I took a deep breath. Slow, steady. And as I looked out into the darkness, one thought settled firmly in my mind. I wasn't going to confront them. Not yet. Because this time, I wasn't going to react. I was going to plan. And when the time came, I wouldn't just take back what they tried to steal. I would make sure they never underestimated me again. The sound of the car pulling into the driveway made my chest tighten, not with fear, but with anticipation. My parents had returned from Hawaii, full of sun, kissed skin, laughter, and the smug confidence of people who believed they had outsmarted me. Daniel hopped out first, grinning ear to ear. "Hey! Guess who got the best snorkeling spot?" he shouted, already planning to dominate the conversation. I greeted them at the door with a calm smile, the kind that fools people into thinking you're still the obedient child they left behind. "Welcome home," I said softly. "Did you have a nice trip?" "Oh, it was wonderful," my mother said, brushing past me with an effortless grace, as if she didn't notice the tension in my jaw or the cold edge behind my words. I nodded politely, stepping aside to let them into the house. "Everything's just as you left it," I added, casually glancing at Grandma, who sat in her chair by the window. She gave me a small, knowing nod. The first few days passed normally, or as normal as anything could be after the revelations. My parents recounted their adventures. Daniel bragged endlessly. I smiled, laughed at the right moments, and even pretended to be interested when they showed me pictures. All the while, I was preparing. I had spent the last week quietly gathering everything I needed: legal documents, letters, calls to lawyers, confirmations. Everything lined up perfectly. By the third evening, the moment had arrived. I called my father into the study. "We need to talk about something important," I said, my voice calm, deliberate. He frowned. "About what?" I handed him the envelope. His eyes widened as he read the first line. Then the second. The third. My mother appeared behind him, curious. "What is it?" I smiled faintly. "It's a legal notice. The transfer of assets you attempted while I was away is invalid. There are irregularities in the paperwork. The house. The savings. Everything. It's being challenged." Shock froze them in place. Daniel appeared in the doorway, confusion and panic twisting his face. "What are you talking about?" I turned to him slowly. "Grandma updated her will while you were away. And everything now goes to someone who values family. Someone who wasn't willing to be sidelined, ignored, or excluded." The color drained from my mother's face. My father's jaw tightened. "Yo, you can't do this," my father stammered. "Oh, I already have," I said softly, each word precise. "And if anyone challenges it, well, the law is very clear." I followed every procedure. "You didn't." For a moment, there was silence, heavy, crushing, then realization set in: panic, fear, regret. I didn't gloat, I didn't shout, I just let them stare at me helpless, while the truth settled around them like a blanket of cold, hard justice. Finally, I turned to Grandma. "It's done?" I said. She smiled, proud and calm. "You found your strength?" I nodded, squeezing her hand. "No," I replied softly. "They forced me to?" That night, the house felt different. Not empty. Not tense. Not broken. It felt mine. I walked through the rooms, looking at the walls I had once felt trapped within. For the first time, I wasn't the one being pushed aside. I wasn't the one losing. I wasn't invisible. And I would never, ever be the one left behind again. The sweetest revenge isn't in anger. It's in patience. In knowing your worth. And in rising while they realize too late what they tried to take from you.